Hello, my name is Kim from Kimber's Corner and welcome to my Corner of Happiness. In this free placemat pattern that I call the Vera placemat, you'll need a 5mm crochet hook, a darning needle, some scissors, and some cotton worsted weight yarn. I have chosen I Love This Cotton from Hobby Lobby in the color Sage. You'll also need some blocking supplies if you choose to block your placemat. When you're ready, make your slip knot with a long enough end to weave in later and chain 74. This is a very simple placemat that's worked in a 5-row repeat, but the first row will be a single crochet row and you'll be working into the third loop or the bump of your chain if you choose to, because it creates a more finished look. So when you are making your chains, just make them snug and not too loose. I'll meet you back when you have 74 chains. Once you have 74 chains, go ahead and turn your chain so that third loop or the bump on the back is exposed. We're going to skip this first little bump and work into the second chain from the hook and make a single crochet. So let's insert your hook, yarn over and pull through your chain. There's 2 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through 2. And that's a single crochet. So once more, insert your hook, yarn over and pull through. There's 2 chains on your hook, yarn over and pull through both chains. And you'll do that all the way across in every stitch and you should have 73 stitches. So I'll meet you back at the end once you've finished your first row of single crochets. I'm working on my last single crochet now, and then I will chain 1 and turn my work. Now the next 4 rows are going to be a half double crochet, but we're going to alternate which loop we're going to work into. So for this first one, we're going to work into the front loop, and the second stitch the back loop, then the third stitch the front loop, and the fourth stitch the back loop, and go on until the end of the row. So let me show you. For a half double crochet, you'll yarn over, insert your hook under the front loop, and it's tricky for your first stitch because everything's really just clumped together. You'll insert your hook just under the front loop, yarn over and pull through, then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on your hook. Then for the next stitch, we're going the back loop. So yarn over, insert your hook into the back loop, yarn over and pull through, and yarn over and pull through all 3 of your loops on the hook. Then for the next one, we're working in the front loop. So yarn over, insert in only the front loop, and pull through all 3, and you're just going to keep working in the front loop, then back loop, then front loop, then back loop, all the way until the end of your row. And the last stitch you should end by doing a stitch in the front loop only. So your first and last stitch of the row should be front loop, and then everyone in between is just alternating between the front loop and the back loop. Okay, so I'll meet you back at the end of the row and I'll show you what it looks like when you're working on your third row. Okay, so my last stitch of the row is working under just the front loop. Then I'll chain 1 and turn. Okay, now row 3 is exactly the same as row 2 because we just finished row 2. So your chain 1 does not count as a stitch, but you'll do a half double crochet into that first loop, the front loop, and then you'll do a half double crochet into just the back loop in the next stitch, and so on until the end of the row. Okay, on the last stitch of row 3, and that's worked into the front loop only, then I'll chain 1 and turn. Now rows 4 and 5 are the half double crochet in the front and back loop alternatively once more, and then row 6 is a row of single crochets. So I'll meet you back at row 6. We can already see that this beautiful texture is coming out, and that's what I love about this placemat because it's super simple, but it has a lot of definition just from a simple stitch pattern. Working into the front loop only of the last stitch for row 5, and you'll chain 1, and we're moving on to row 6. Now row 6 is just a single crochet through both loops and each stitch across. So your chain 1 does not count as a stitch. So in that first stitch, you'll place a single crochet and until the end of the row. Once you've reached the end of row 6 and place your single crochet in the last stitch and chain 1, you're going to repeat rows 2 through 6 additional times. So that means you'll do 4 rows of the half double crochet alternating in the front and back loop, and then in a row of single crochet 6 more times. That does not include this one. So the 6 times plus this means 7 times. So when you're looking at the placemat, you'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 rows of single crochet with 4 rows of half double crochet in between them. Okay, you should have a total of 36 rows, and your last row will be a row of single crochet. Now I'm finishing up the 6th row, the single crochet row of the 5-row repeat, or row 36. So I've just done my last stitch, and I'll chain 1. Now we're going to start the border. So I'm sure you've noticed on your project that the edges of the side of the placemat is kind of bumpy and it's not straight. And we're gonna fix that with the border, kind of cover it up a little bit. Now it's just 1 row of half double crochet. Now you can fasten off and cut here, or you can go down this way. But if you go down this way, then this is the front side of your work. It truly does not matter which is the right or wrong side because they look the same on both sides. The only difference you're gonna have is that if this is your front side, then the bottom is gonna be the back side of your row 1. Or if you want this side to be your front side, then you'll have the front part of row 1. But the back of the stitch and the front of the stitch do not match up from row 1 and row 36. So this is the front of your stitch and this is the back. So it truly does not matter which one. It's just a preference of where you want it, of where you want the front of your half double crochet border to lay. So I'm just gonna continue my border from here. I'm not gonna fasten off. I will show you how to attach your yarn on the other side for the other border. And if you decide to fasten off here, it's just the same for both sides. So after you've chained 1, you're just gonna yarn over, insert your hook, pull through, and pull through all 3 loops. And you're just going to work evenly along. And all that means is you're crocheting enough stitches to fit the space. That usually it can mean 1 stitch for every row, but because we have 1 row of single crochet that's worked in between our half double crochet rows, the width of our half double crochet is going to be taller than that 1 row of single crochet. So really just crochet evenly along wherever you just want to naturally put your hook is most likely where is going to mean that you're crocheting evenly along. I wouldn't worry so much about the row counts. I would just kind of work in wherever you feel comfortable. And if you have to pull this out and redo it because you think it looks too twisted or you got too many stitches or too little stitches, you know, just play with it and trust yourself. It may take, if you've never done this before, it may take you a few tries to get it. I personally have crocheted about 45 to 46 stitches on the edges of this placemat, but I have not gotten that number every single time, and it still looks like I've crocheted evenly, even though if I was a few stitches off. So just keep working. I'm struggling because I'm trying to get my hook under a few of the stitches that were being stubborn. But it's better as you're working evenly along if you work under some of these, I don't know even what to call them. If you don't work under just 1 strand, it's better if you work under a few strands. That way your project doesn't look stretched, it doesn't look like there's a hole in it, and everything is uniform, things like that. So keep working evenly across until you get to the end. Okay, I did my last stitch. I just worked my last stitch into the chain space, and I'm gonna chain 1 and then cut my yarn and pull it tight to fasten off. Now let's go to the other side. Okay. So with the other side, you want to keep conscious of which side the front of your half double crochet border is on, because we're going to turn it clockwise and we're going to fasten on the same side that we fastened off. That'll get you to have the same side of the stitch on the same side of your work. So we're going to be working this way so that the front stitch is facing us. So you go ahead and insert your hook where you want your first stitch to be. I like to do my first stitch in that chain space. Get my yarn here. And I'll just pull through a loop with my yarn. Then I'll chain one. And you fastened on your work. So then we'll do a half double crochet in that same spot, and that's your first stitch. So you can either crochet over the end that you just made, or you can just drop it and weave it in later. I'm gonna choose to drop it and weave it in later. And it's the same as the other side. You'll just crochet evenly along. You'll try to get the same number of stitches as you did on the other side, but as long as it looks even and looks, you know, uniform, you should be fine. And I chose a very tight spot to pull my hook through. Okay. And again, don't worry so much with the row counts and getting the rows even. Just kind of work wherever feels natural to you, and where it feels natural you would put your hook next. And that'll help you along on getting these evenly spaced. Okay, now I'm on the last stitch. So I'm gonna work my last stitch into the first stitch of row 36, and then I'm gonna fasten off and weave in my ends. Now, one thing I would like to point out is that we did this border to get rid of the bumpiness in your edges. Now, I recommend that you block this placemat just because this was the first one we did. It still can look bumpy. Now, let me show you what it looks like after I've blocked it. So this is one of my other placemats, and you can tell that it's, even on both sides, it's a lot more straight, and that's why I blocked it. And if you look it over and look at the wrong side, you can see the kind of bumpiness still, but when you're looking at it from the front side, the right side, you can hardly tell at all. And it's still, your placemat still looks fine. I may have crocheted too many in there. I'm probably gonna go back and fix that. That's what I was talking about. Sometimes you might have to play with it if it gets to looking like that. Or you can just block it and you just work with it as like that. It's totally up to you. And so it'll still look fine as long as, you know, you've crocheted evenly. That was a bad example. But as long as you've crocheted evenly, you can still get it to look really nice on your table, so you don't have to block it. If you have the supplies, I would recommend it, but that is all up to your discretion. I hope you enjoy. Thanks for watching. Yay, I fixed it. That looks far less bumpy than before.